Strawberry was becoming one of John's favorite places to visit. Today, it was again another hub for one of his adventures. First, he checked into his hotel for the night. He was staying at the Welcome Center's room. At this point, he had stayed here many times, and by far, this was one of his favorite hotel rooms he's stayed at so far. First things first, John needed to change into a lighter, more breathable outfit. He decided to go with this outfit. Like usual, he always had to check out his amazing balcony view. He was hoping to go on a mini hike today, and then tomorrow hit the big hike he was waiting for. First though, he wanted to get something to eat. The best general store in town was right across from the hotel. He wasn't quite sure what he wanted to eat yet, so he decided to browse the catalog. He decided to buy some locally sourced salted beef, and also bought a simple bread roll. While eating his lunch, he wondered where he'd take his first mini hike. He wasn't quite sure what he'd do yet, but he also wanted to do something today still. He decided to go around and ask some people what they thought he should do. Some people had no good suggestions for him, but one guy just told him to follow the river down. He said it was a pretty cool route. John took his advice and decided this would be his first mini hike of the adventure. John started his hike following the river. He had no clue how long the river went or where it flowed to, but this trip was all about just winging it. John enjoyed walking down the riverside because compared to where he would be hiking tomorrow, this was a chill and easy hike. He found this pretty cool mini waterfall that he enjoyed watching. He wasn't quite sure how far to go and how close he was to the end of the river, but he just kept going for now. Some rapids started to develop in this area. There was no official trail down the river, so John had to make one himself. Eventually, he saw a bridge in the distance. He decided he'd go check it out, and then this would be his turnaround point. The bridge was pretty cool, and John decided to take a break to look over the edge. It was cool that the river went through like a canyon here. He checked out the other side after that and then decided to head back. Before he left though, he noticed a guy hogtied on the back of this horse. It wasn't his problem though, so he left him be. He didn't want to get too far from Strawberry, as he didn't want to get stranded out there at night with no lights or anything. He decided to run though, as he didn't want it to take forever to get back. He'd been really physically active lately with all his hiking, so this was no big deal to him. He eventually made his way back to town and found this cool cliff overlooking it. This part got him hyped up for tomorrow's hike. John headed back into town and decided to head back to his hotel room, where he decided to relax on his balcony for the rest of the night. He opted for an early bedtime today because he was going to need all the energy he could get for tomorrow's big hike, so he headed to sleep. The next morning, he immediately picked up some food from the general store and then immediately embarked to the starting point of the trail. The trailhead was a simple walk from Strawberry, which is why it was a perfect base to start at. The loop he was about to take was pretty famous by word of mouth. He'd been hearing about it for a while and always wanted to try it. Today was his day. He quickly approached the trailhead off the main road and officially started his big hike. He could just barely start to see what he'd be climbing in the future. John wasn't a huge fan of hiking. He preferred horseback riding, but he knew this one would be specifically worth it. The risk of bringing his horse on this trail was not worth it. He hoped he'd be more free to do what he would like without it. Very quickly, the trail was already starting to get a little bit crazier. This trail looped and made its way up and around Mount Shann. He made his way up to his very first of many switchbacks on this trail. He was really starting to gain some elevation here. The view off to the side of this trail was quickly becoming amazing as he came up on another switchback. This time much higher than the first, he decided to check over the edge. He was met with an amazing view. He couldn't believe he wasn't even up the whole mountain yet. How good was it going to be when he was at the top? He kept moving up the mountain, not wanting to waste too much time. So far, he was feeling great as well, not even a single bit tired. It visually looked like he was getting pretty close to the top now. And honestly, the trail was becoming really crazy. There was now a sheer cliff to his right. If he fell off, he was done for. Now felt like a great time to pull out the binoculars. Right away, John noticed his hometown, Blackwater. That was super cool to see from up here. John reminded himself to be safe for Abigail and Jack, so he left the cliffside and kept going. The trail kept winding super tight up the side of this mountain as he continued to make his way to the top. It really started to get cool around here. So far, the hike was honestly pretty relaxing and fun for John. John then stumbled on a rock carving in the ground. He wrote about it in his notebook and then moved on. The view of the mountains on this part of the trail was insane. Once again, John decided to check out the sheer cliff right next to him. It was honestly a great adventure so far. On his very next switchback though, he noticed a dead body. That's right, he saw a human skeleton on the ground. He looked at it for a while, wondering what went wrong. He sure told himself he was not going to end up in the same situation though. He wouldn't lie, it did make him a little bit more nervous now though. He drew it in his notebook to remember what he saw and then called it good and kept going. John was now getting really close to what he presumed was the top. To be honest now too, he was definitely getting a little bit colder being at a higher elevation. Right up this part of the trail looked to be the top, and as he got up he realized the trail didn't go all the way to the very peak. Again though, he noticed a very deadly drop. He realized he was going to have to climb this peak himself. He wasn't going to come all the way up here just to not get to the top. His first attempt though did not go so well, as he realized it got pretty steep towards the top and he slid down. Thankfully, he didn't slide off the mountain. He gave it another shot. This time though, he made it almost all the way, but at the very end, he slid down. That time was a lot closer, but he remained on the mountain. His third attempt, he tried getting some momentum from the bottom, but once again slid down. This was way harder than he thought it was going to be, but he was not going to leave without getting to the top. This attempt was by far his closest yet. He was about a step away from making it to the top. Thankfully, the slides down this rock didn't hurt that much. This time though, he almost fell off the deadly ledge. He definitely decided to play it more carefully after that last one. And it worked out because this time he actually made it to the top. After many attempts, he had finally made it, and it was 100% worth the effort. He looked all around him as he literally felt on top of the world, being on a mountain. He decided to get his binoculars out again, and he immediately noticed something cool. It looked like some sort of statue in the distance. He wasn't quite sure what it was, but he was gonna go check it out later. He saw a ranch far off in the distance as well. He tried to find Strawberry, but he couldn't quite locate it. After that, to descend off this peak, he decided to slide down. This was honestly pretty fun, but he had to be careful to not fall off the ledge. Walking on this part of the trail was so cool. Since he was on top of the mountain, there was a sheer cliff on both sides. He would head to go check out that mystery statue. This part of the trail was definitely his favorite, and just like that, he came up on the part that he would need to climb to get to the statue. Once again though, he realized it was very steep. He decided to look for a better approach at it, and he went for the opposite side. Still, it was steep though. Once again, adjusting where he started, he was actually able to make it up a little bit. The very last part though was the steepest, and it caused him to fall again. He thought he had enough momentum there, but he didn't. This time he decided to take it slow, but still, it was too steep. He was so close though. He went for one last attempt though, and this time pairing patience and momentum, he actually made it up the steep part. He had one last little wall to climb up, and then he was there. It was time to check out the cool statue. It was basically just a rock pillar sticking out of the ground with a bunch of other rocks surrounding it. He wondered what it meant or who made it. He would probably never know the answers to those questions, but it was still cool to look at and wonder. After taking one last look around it, he decided he had had enough and moved on. This time, instead of sliding, he made his way slowly down the mountainside. After a little stumble at the end, he was still safe. He ended up on the right trail as well. The loop was now making its descent down the mountain, which was good because he was starting to get cold up there. He still had a long ways to get back though, so his hike was far from over. Just the coolest part was done now. On his way down, John noticed a dinosaur bone. This was super cool and another thing he had to write in his notebook. He had so far found a lot of cool things on this mountain. As he continued on his hike, there was now no more snow, and nothing really cool was going on, so he started to pick up the pace a little bit. He did notice 2 horses and a wagon. They appeared to be just completely abandoned here. John didn't want the rest of the hike to take forever, so he started to run. John was now near the end of the trail as he saw the main road now. This was going to be the most boring part of the trip, walking all the way back to Strawberry. On his way back though, he decided to reflect on his adventure. First he arrived and got comfortable in Strawberry, then he got some food at the local general store. Then he asked some locals for a good mini hike. He ended up choosing going down the river. He followed down the river, found a mini waterfall, continued to look at rapids, eventually stopped at a bridge, saw a guy hogtied on the back of a horse, ran all the way back to Strawberry, where he then went to bed to get ready for tomorrow. He woke up early the next day, got breakfast, and immediately started heading to the trailhead. Starting off on an easy trail that slowly ramped up in difficulty. The view got better and better, the turns became sharper and sharper as he made his way up the mountain. He stumbled on the remains of a dead person, and only a little bit after that, he made it to the top. At the top, he needed to climb up to the very peak, going off the trail. He slid down many times, but after some persistence, he made it to the top. He got out his binoculars, looked around, he saw a cool statue in the distance. He slid down the peak he climbed up, and decided to walk to it. Once he got there, he realized he had to climb even more, slipped again a couple times, but eventually made it to the top. He admired the statue, and then decided it was time to keep going. He made it back to the main trail, found a dinosaur bone on the way back, and then made it to the main road on his way back to Strawberry, where he was now. Eventually, he came up on a sign telling him he was close to Strawberry, so he followed its directions. He continued his long run, and shortly after, he arrived back at the town of Strawberry. It all ended up being perfect timing as well, because the sun was starting to set. Today was a great day for John, and he was very happy he went on the hike.